Hey, it's Mega, aka the Art Messiah, here to save you from your art sins. Welcome back to another drawing tutorial. Today we will be talking about drawing female proportions. This video is in a series of videos that is meant to explain the fundamentals of drawing so that you guys can come up with your own characters and your own poses. So if you like the content I'm producing, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and jump right into this video. So the previous week we talked about how to draw the male proportions, and drawing female proportions there's a lot of similarities. So if you haven't checked out that video, I encourage you to do so, and I'll link that in the video description so you can check that out. So I have pulled up a model and we're just going to use this as a reference, and it's not necessary for you guys to have this model, but it can be helpful to kind of do this study along with me. However, it is not a necessity. And I also want to point out that even though I'm teaching proportions for male proportions and female proportions, in real life you can have a whole range of proportions. There's not one type of body type. We're just taking average proportions, and it's up to you guys to make your own characters with your own body proportions and make your own characters come to life. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and hop right into this. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down the opacity of this model because, again, we're just using this as a reference. So on your piece of paper, go ahead and draw an oval near the top of the page, and this is going to represent the head. Let me grab my pencil tool. So go ahead and draw an oval at the top of your page. It doesn't have to be a perfect oval. Okay, so with that oval, we are going to use that as a unit of measurement. Okay, so as you remember from last week, an average adult person's height is going to be 8 heads tall. So we take that oval and we're going to go down 8 heads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we are going to draw a line at the bottom of the 8th head. Okay, and so that's going to give us where the bottom of the feet are going to be for our figure. So that's very important. So to start off with, we're just going to draw in a lot of reference lines before we get into the body proportions. Another critical point is drawing a line halfway between this top line and this bottom line. Okay, so that will be 4 heads down. Let's draw a line right there, and that's going to represent the bottom of the pelvis. So you can think, your torso up to your head is half of your body, and then from the bottom of the pelvis, your legs downwards to your feet, that is the other half of your body proportion. So the next line I like to draw is the center line for the chest, and that happens to fall between the top of the head and the bottom of the pelvis. So that's going to be 2 heads down. So let's go ahead and draw in that line right here. Okay, and what we can do from this line is we can go 1/3 of the head way up and draw another line, and that's going to represent the clavicle. We do 1/3 ahead below that center line, and that's going to be the bottom of the rib cage. Okay, so the last line that we need to make for this torso is if we go around 1/3 of the head up from the bottom of the pelvis line, we go ahead and draw a line in there. That's going to represent the top of the pelvis. Okay, so that's all there is for the torso. So 2 important points is that the bottom of the rib cage lines up with that joint in the arm. So we'll go ahead and add those joints in right now. And now let's shift our focus to the bottom half of the body. Let's focus on those proportions, and this is where it gets really easy. So you go all the way to the bottom line, and you go up a half a head, and that's where your ankles are going to be. And then halfway between where the ankles are and the bottom of the pelvis is going to be exactly where the knees fall. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw in those joints as well. Okay, so the very last thing that we need to do is determine the width. Now for a female body, it's typically a little bit more narrower in the shoulders. So what I do is I grab the head and I put one on the left and I put one on the right, and that's going to give us approximately the width of the shoulders, maybe a little bit less because this is the female body. Okay, so with all those guidelines in place, now we can go ahead and get rid of this reference model. I was only using that to show you that yes, these proportions actually do match up to a real life figure. But when you're drawing this on your own, you do not need that reference figure. You can just follow along with the steps that I am telling you. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to a black pencil so we can start to talk about these final lines and these final proportions. Now, if you've been following along, you should have something that looks like this. This is what your guidelines should look like, okay? So those 8 heads and then these lines that I have shown you to create. Okay, so once those lines are created, now I'm going to show you how to make the proportions. Okay, so first things first, I always like to start off with the torso. So we're going to do that. We're going to start off with that clavicle bone, and we're going to just draw a line like this. And about a little more than halfway through these heads, we're going to make these little endpoints, and this is going to be the edge of the torso, and we're going to make a swooping line that kind of comes in just like this, a very gradual sloping line that comes in like this, and then we're going to make the end of the box. So make this kind of box shape just like this. Okay, and then at this point for female proportions, it's going to start tapering back outwards and outwards, and until you get to this bottom halfway point line, which is the bottom of the pelvis. Just go ahead and draw a sloping line coming back outwards. And this is what people are talking about when they're talking about that hourglass figure. And we're just going to go ahead and close off the bottom here. This is the hourglass figure that they're kind of talking about. Men typically are more square and straight, and female proportions are a little bit more tapered. So we also draw in this line for here, which represents the top of the pelvis. And what we do is we connect, we were going to draw a midpoint. We're going to connect this corner to the center, and this corner to the center, and that's going to help us get the angle of this pelvis. Okay, so now we kind of have the torso looking pretty good. We're going to drop in this center line, and the belly button is going to go right underneath the rib cage, just like that. And we're going to come back up here and we're going to start working on the neck. Now the neck, I just draw a triangle like so. So go ahead and draw a triangle like this. And for the neck to connect to the head, I just drop 2 parallel lines straight down, and once it starts hitting that triangle, I just round it off like that. Okay, so that's looking really good. Okay, so for those shoulders, remember those shoulders come out to this outside edge, so it's going to be, that joint is going to be a circle, but since it's kind of being cut off a little bit, we're just going to draw this half of the circle, and we're going to do the same thing with this other side. We're going to drop in that circle, and now we're going to drop in parallel lines for the arms, And then for this next section in the arms, I like to use this bowling pin kind of shape. And this bowling pin shape is going to take you all the way to the edge of this pelvis region. So right around there. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. Dropping in parallel lines for the biceps. Okay, this is your elbow, this is your joint. And then we have these two lines that curve outwards and they curve back in, and that's that bowling pin shape that we've kind of discussed. Okay, and for the hands, I just like to keep it simple. I like to do a box shape, just like this. And for the fingers, I like to make this shape just like this. And remember, this isn't so much a hand tutorial. We will be getting into hands later, but I just kind of want to go ahead and get some basic proportions in for the hands. Now that the torso is done, let's go ahead and move into the legs. Again, these legs, they're going to be not necessarily parallel. They are going to kind of taper as they get closer to the knee, just like that. And again, this bowling pin shape for the calves and for the rest of this leg, and it's going to look something like this. Make that bowling pin shape. Now let's do the other side. Okay, these legs are coming to these knees, to this point, and then they curve back out and come back in like that bowling pin. Okay, so I just want you guys to notice how we're using all these guides from before. For the feet, I just use a triangular shape to suggest the feet for now. Again, we will be moving in tutorials for that later on, but for now we're going to stick with just triangles. And we're going to go ahead and round that out. That's where the bottom of the feet go. And there you go. That is pretty much the figure in a nutshell. There's a few comments that I want to make before I wrap up this video, but some key differences that I want you guys to remember when you're comparing male proportions and female proportions. Number one is to make the shoulders not as wide. Bring in the shoulders a little bit for your female characters. Number two, use more of an hourglass shape for the torso. Number three, make the thighs just a little bit bigger and the calves a little bit smaller. And that is pretty much the main and significant differences. Now, again, I want to reiterate that in real life, you know, females can be bodybuilders. They can have broader shoulders than men. This is just an average, typical approach to it. There's actually one thing that I want to add in before I close out this video. And let me go ahead and bring back in those guides. Remember I said that was the center of the chest? Okay, so if we are going to draw in your actual chest, I like to use this kind of heart shape. Okay, so I start from this side of the neck, just like this, and I go to that point where the shoulder connects with the body. Okay, so that's how I draw that line. I curve it out and I curve it back in. And so what I'm kind of thinking about is like creating almost like a bra around this character's chest. And so we do the same thing on this side. We come out right to that point where it connects the chest, and again we round it out and we connect it just like that. So that's one way to go ahead and start defining the chest region. So hopefully that helps you guys start to come up with the proportions. In next video, we're going to be breaking down how to draw characters of different ages and how to draw proportions of that. You guys are going to be surprised at how easy it is and how easy it is to get proportions right every single time you are drawing characters. So I'm really excited to show that. Hopefully you guys got something from this video. You learned a little bit, and until next time, keep drawing. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, peace.